Jake Morrison walked through the dark caves on planet Kepler 442c. His boots made soft sounds on the rocky ground. He carried a bag full of tools and a bright light that cut through the darkness. Jake worked for the mining company, but he was different from the other workers. While they dug for metals and crystals, Jake studied the strange animals that lived on this dangerous planet. The cave walls sparkled with blue and green crystals. Jake stopped to take pictures and collect samples. He had been working on this planet for 2 years, and he still found new things every day. Most people thought the planet's creatures were monsters. They were big, scary, and looked very different from Earth animals. But Jake saw them as interesting life forms that deserved respect. As Jake moved deeper into the cave, he heard a low sound. It was like crying, but much deeper. He turned off his light and listened carefully. The sound came again. It was weak and full of pain. Jake felt his heart beat faster. Something was hurt. He followed the sound through narrow passages until he reached a large open space. His light showed a terrible sight. Huge rocks had fallen from the ceiling. Under the rocks, something moved very slowly. Jake came closer and saw the biggest alien creature he had ever seen. The creature was 12 feet tall, even lying down. Its body was covered in hard shell pieces that looked like armor. Some of the shell pieces were cracked and bleeding a thick, dark liquid. The creature had many arms and legs, all twisted under the heavy rocks. Its eyes were large and made of many small parts, like an insect's eyes. They looked at Jake with fear and pain. Most people would have run away or called for help to kill the creature, but Jake saw something that made him stop. The creature's belly was very big and round. Jake had studied many alien animals, and he knew what this meant. The creature was going to have babies very soon. Jake set down his bag and spoke softly to the creature. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The creature tried to move away from him, but the rocks held it trapped. Its breathing was fast and shallow. Jake could see it was dying. He looked at the fallen rocks. They were too heavy for one person to move, but Jake had to try. He found a long metal bar in his bag and used it to lift one of the smaller rocks. The creature watched him with its strange eyes. When the rock moved, some of the pressure came off the creature's body. Jake worked for hours. He moved rocks one by one, always talking softly to the creature. "I'm here to help. You're going to be okay." Slowly, the creature stopped trying to get away from him. It seemed to understand that Jake wanted to help. When most of the rocks were gone, Jake could see the creature better. It was female, and she was very close to giving birth. Her breathing had changed, and she made new sounds. Jake had helped deliver babies before, but only human babies. This was very different. The creature looked at Jake with her big eyes. For the first time, she did not seem afraid. Jake reached out slowly and touched her arm. Her skin was warm and smooth under the hard shell pieces. She did not pull away. "I'm going to help you," Jake said. "I don't know much about your kind, but I'll do my best." He opened his medical bag and took out supplies. He had bandages, medicine for pain, and tools for helping with births. Jake cleaned the creature's wounds first. The dark blood stopped flowing, and some of the pain seemed to leave her eyes. Then he prepared for the birth. He had no idea what to expect, but he knew all mothers needed the same basic things: safety, cleanliness, and someone to help them. The creature made a sound that was almost like a purr. Jake thought it might mean thank you. He smiled at her. "You're welcome. We'll get through this together." As the night went on, the creature began to have contractions. Jake stayed by her side, using his light to see and his hands to help. The birth was unlike anything he had ever seen. The creature's body changed colors, flashing blue and green lights under her shell. Jake realized this was how she communicated. "Is that your way of talking?" Jake asked. The creature's lights pulsed once as if she was saying yes. Jake tried to copy the pattern with his flashlight. The creature's eyes seemed to brighten with surprise. Hours passed. Jake gave the creature water and tried to make her comfortable. She trusted him completely now, letting him touch her and help her through the difficult birth. Jake felt amazed that this huge, powerful creature would trust a small human like him. Finally, the moment came. Jake helped bring the first baby into the world. It was small compared to its mother, about the size of a large dog. Its shell was soft and bright with colors. The baby opened its eyes and looked right at Jake. Instead of being afraid, it made a soft, happy sound. A few minutes later, the second baby was born. This one was also healthy and strong. Like its sibling, it looked at Jake without fear. Both babies crawled toward Jake, their lights flashing in pretty patterns. The mother creature watched as her babies came to Jake. She made a deep, rumbling sound that Jake thought meant approval. The babies touched Jake's hands with their small arms. Their shell pieces were warm and smooth. Jake felt tears in his eyes. He had never experienced anything like this. These alien creatures born just minutes ago seemed to know that he was their friend. They were not afraid of him. Instead, they acted like he was part of their family. The mother creature was very tired but alive.
Jake gave her medicine for pain and more water.
Her babies stayed close to Jake, making soft sounds and flashing their lights. Jake realized that something very special had happened in this cave. He had not just saved lives. He had become part of an alien family. But Jake knew that the hard part was just beginning. He had to get the creature family back to the human colony. Many people there would see them as dangerous monsters. Jake would have to convince everyone that these creatures were not enemies. They were intelligent beings who deserved respect and protection. Jake looked at the mother and her two babies. They trusted him completely. Now he had to make sure that trust was not misplaced. He had to protect them no matter what it cost him. Jake spent the whole night in the cave with the alien mother and her two babies. He used his emergency supplies to clean their wounds and make them comfortable. The babies stayed close to Jake, touching his hands and arms with their small limbs. Their mother watched everything with her large eyes. Jake had never seen anything like the way the babies acted around him. They were not afraid at all. When he moved, they followed him. When he sat down, they came to sit beside him. Their shell pieces glowed with soft blue and green lights, and Jake began to understand that these lights were their way of talking. The mother creature was getting stronger. Jake helped her drink water and gave her some of his food. She ate it carefully as if she understood that Jake was sharing something important with her. Her babies copied everything she did. When she drank water, they tried to drink water too. When she ate, they wanted to eat. Jake realized that these creatures learned very quickly. The babies watched Jake use his tools and tried to copy him. When Jake used his light to see, one of the babies picked up a small crystal and held it like Jake held his light. When Jake packed his bag, the other baby tried to help by bringing him small rocks. "You two are very smart," Jake said to the babies. They made happy sounds and their lights flashed brighter. Jake decided to give them names. The baby with brighter blue lights he called Luna, because the lights reminded him of moonlight. The baby with brighter green lights he called Sol, because the green lights looked like sunlight through leaves. Their mother he named Vera, because she had been so brave during the birth. Jake knew he could not stay in the cave forever. His radio had been calling him all night. The other workers at the colony would be worried about him. But Jake was also worried about what would happen when he brought Vera and her babies back to the human settlement. Most humans on this planet were afraid of the local creatures. They saw them as dangerous monsters that wanted to hurt people. The colony had rules about killing any large alien creatures that came too close to the human settlement. Jake knew that many people would want to destroy Vera and her babies, but Jake also knew that Vera and her babies were not monsters. They were intelligent beings who could think and feel. Luna and Sol had learned to trust Jake in just a few hours. They followed him everywhere and tried to help him with everything he did. Vera watched over all of them like a mother watching her children. Jake made a difficult decision. He would have to take the family back to the colony and convince everyone that they were not dangerous. He would have to prove that these creatures deserved to live and be protected. Jake helped Vera stand up. She was still weak from the birth, but she could walk slowly. Luna and Sol stayed close to Jake's legs as they all moved through the cave. The journey back to the cave entrance took a long time because Vera needed to rest often. When they reached the entrance, Jake saw lights moving toward them. Colony security vehicles were coming to look for him. Jake felt his heart pound with worry. He knew that the security team would be armed and ready to fight what they would see as dangerous aliens. Jake stepped out of the cave first, holding his hands up to show he was safe. "Don't shoot," he called out. "Everything is okay." Commander Pete Williams jumped out of the first vehicle. He was a big man who did not like aliens. Behind him came 6 security guards with weapons. "Morrison, what happened to you?" "We've been looking all night." "I found something amazing," Jake said. "I need you to promise me you won't hurt them." "Hurt what?" Pete asked. Then Vera stepped out of the cave behind Jake. Pete and his men raised their weapons immediately. "Get back, Morrison. That thing is huge. She's not dangerous, Jake said, moving to stand between Vera and the weapons. She just gave birth. She's weak and scared. Luna and Sol came out of the cave and ran to Jake. They wrapped their small arms around his legs and made frightened sounds when they saw the weapons. Their lights flashed in quick, worried patterns. "There are more of them," one of the guards said. "We need to kill them before they multiply." "No," Jake shouted. "Look at them. They're babies. They're not hurting anyone." Pete stared at the small creatures clinging to Jake. "Why aren't they attacking you?" "Because they trust me," Jake said. "I helped deliver them. I saved their mother's life. They see me as family." One of the guards laughed. "Aliens don't have families. They're just animals." "These are not just animals," Jake said. "Watch this." He knelt down and made a pattern with his flashlight. Luna and Sol saw the pattern and copied it with their own lights. Then they made a new pattern and Jake tried to copy them. The security team watched in amazement as Jake and the alien babies had a conversation using lights. It was clear that the creatures were intelligent and were trying to communicate. Vera made a deep sound and slowly approached the humans. The security team tensed, but Jake held up his hand. "She's not going to hurt anyone. She's saying thank you." Vera stopped a few feet away from Pete and lowered her head. Her lights flashed in a slow, respectful pattern. Then she looked at Jake and her babies. Her meaning was clear. She was showing that Jake was under her protection and her babies were under his protection. "This changes everything," Pete said slowly. "If they're intelligent," "They are," Jake said. "And they're peaceful. They just want to live and take care of their family." Pete looked at his men, then back at the alien family. "We need to call headquarters. This is bigger than just one colony." Jake felt relief wash over him. The first big test was over. Pete and his team were not going to hurt Vera and her babies. But Jake knew this was just the beginning. The real challenge would come when they reached the colony and had to convince hundreds of humans that these creatures deserved to live among them. Luna and Sol stayed close to Jake as they all walked back to the vehicles. They were fascinated by the human technology but were not afraid. They touched the vehicles carefully and made interested sounds. Their quick learning and fearless curiosity impressed even Pete's tough security guards. Vera walked slowly behind them, still recovering from the birth. But she watched everything with intelligent eyes. Jake could tell she was learning about humans just as fast as her babies were. As they drove back to the colony, Jake held Luna and Sol in his lap. They looked out the windows with wonder, seeing the planet's landscape from a new perspective. Their lights flashed with excitement and curiosity. Jake knew that whatever happened next, his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a scientist studying alien life. He was now the guardian and protector of an alien family that had chosen to trust him with their lives. The colony was in chaos when Jake arrived with Vera and her babies. People came out of their buildings to stare at the alien family. Some were curious, but many were frightened. Children pointed and asked questions while their parents pulled them back inside. Director Helen Cross met them at the colony entrance. She was a thin woman with sharp eyes who made all the important decisions for the settlement. "Morrison, explain this situation immediately." Jake climbed out of the vehicle with Luna and Sol still holding on to him. "Director Cross, I'd like you to meet Vera, Luna, and Sol. They're the first friendly alien contact we've made on this planet." "Friendly?" Director Cross looked at Vera, who was 12 feet tall and covered in armor-like shell pieces. "That creature could kill a dozen people." "But she won't," Jake said. "She's intelligent and peaceful. Watch." Jake knelt down and made light patterns with his flashlight. Luna and Sol immediately copied the patterns and added their own. They were having a conversation that everyone could see. Dr. Amy Clark, the colony's other scientist, pushed forward through the crowd. "This is incredible, Jake. How long have you been able to communicate with them?" "Since last night," Jake said. "They learn very fast. Luna and Sol already understand some of our words." Jake pointed to his bag and said "bag" several times. Both babies pointed to the bag and made sounds that were very close to the word bag. The crowd murmured with surprise. Even Director Cross looked impressed, though she tried not to show it. "They're still dangerous," said Commander Pete Williams. "We can't have giant aliens living in our colony." Jake stood up and Luna and Sol pressed close to his legs. "They're not dangerous to people who don't threaten them. Look how they act around me. It was true." Luna and Sol treated Jake like he was their father. They followed him everywhere and tried to copy everything he did. When Jake sat down, they sat beside him. When he ate food, they wanted to try the same food. When he spoke, they listened carefully and tried to make similar sounds. Vera watched all the humans with careful eyes. She seemed to understand that some people were afraid of her and some were curious about her. She stayed calm and moved slowly so she would not scare anyone. "We need to set up a secure area for them," Director Cross finally said. "Morrison, you'll be responsible for studying them and making sure they don't cause problems." Jake felt relieved. It was not perfect, but at least Vera and her babies would be safe. "Thank you, Director. I won't let you down." The colony built a large enclosure for the alien family. It had strong walls but also had windows so people could see in. Jake spent every day with Vera, Luna, and Saul, learning about their abilities and teaching them about human life. The babies grew very quickly. In just 2 weeks, they were twice as big as when they were born. But they were still much smaller than their mother. Jake realized that they would not be fully grown for several months. Luna and Saul learned new things every day. They figured out how to open doors by watching humans do it. They learned to use simple tools like hammers and screwdrivers. They even learned to play games with human children who were brave enough to visit them. But the most amazing thing was how much they loved Jake. Every morning when Jake came to see them, Luna and Saul would run to him and wrap their arms around him. Their lights would flash with joy and they would make happy purring sounds. Vera also became very attached to Jake. She would follow him around their enclosure and bring him things she thought he might like. She brought him pretty crystals, interesting rocks, and plants she found growing nearby. Jake realized she was giving him gifts to show her gratitude. Jake began to understand that Vera's people, whom he called Luminary, had their own culture and traditions. They used light patterns to communicate complex ideas. They shared food with family members. They took care of each other when someone was sick or hurt. "They're not so different from us," Jake told Dr. Amy Clark one day. "They love their families, they help each other, and they want to live in peace." But not everyone in the colony agreed with Jake. Engineer Rick Santos and his friends thought the aliens were fascinating and wanted to learn more about them. But Director Cross and Commander Pete Williams still worried that the aliens might become dangerous. As they grew bigger, the tension in the colony grew worse when more alien creatures were spotted near the settlement. These were different from Vera's family. They were smaller but moved in large groups and they seemed more aggressive. "See?" Director Cross said at a colony meeting. "First we have one family of aliens and now more are coming. Soon we'll be overrun." Jake tried to explain that not all aliens were the same. Vera's family is peaceful because they're intelligent. These other creatures might be different. We need to study each species separately. But fear was spreading through the colony. Some people wanted to send Vera and her babies away. Others wanted to kill them before they could become a threat. Jake spent more time with the alien family trying to learn everything he could about them. He discovered that Luna and Saul were not just smart. They were getting smarter every day. They began to understand human emotions and could tell when people were happy, sad, or angry. One day, a little human girl named Katie got too close to the enclosure fence. She slipped and fell, scraping her knee badly. She started crying loudly. Luna immediately ran to the fence where Katie had fallen. Luna's lights flashed in worried patterns, and she made soft, comforting sounds. She could not reach through the fence to help Katie, but she stayed there trying to comfort the crying child. Jake quickly helped Katie and bandaged her knee. When Katie stopped crying, Luna's lights changed to happy patterns. It was clear that Luna cared about the human child's pain and felt better when Katie felt better. "Did you see that?" Dr. Amy Clark asked Jake. Luna was genuinely concerned about Katie. That shows emotional intelligence that's almost human-like. More people began to see that Vera's family was special. They were not just smart animals. They were beings who could feel love, worry, joy, and sadness just like humans did. But the good feelings did not last long. Scout reports came in of a huge storm approaching the colony. With the storm came packs of the planet's most dangerous predators, creatures the colonists called Void Stalkers. Void Stalkers were nothing like Vera's family. They were pure predators that hunted in groups and showed no intelligence beyond their hunting instincts. They were fast, strong, and completely savage. The approaching storm would drive dozens of them toward the colony. "All non-essential personnel need to evacuate," Director Cross announced. "We're facing the biggest threat this colony has ever seen." Jake looked at Vera and her babies through the enclosure window. Luna and Sol pressed against the glass, their lights flashing with worry. They could sense that something bad was coming. Jake realized that the approaching danger would be the ultimate test. Would the colony protect Vera's family when the real monsters arrived? Or would fear make people abandon the aliens who had shown them nothing but friendship and trust? The storm clouds were already visible on the horizon, and Jake could hear the distant howls of the void stalkers carried on the wind. The storm hit the colony like a giant fist. Wind screamed through the buildings and rain pounded against the windows. Lightning flashed constantly, turning the sky purple and white. But worse than the storm were the creatures it brought with it. Void stalkers came in packs of 6 or 8. They were black as shadows with long claws and rows of sharp teeth. Unlike Vera's family, these creatures had no intelligence in their eyes. They existed only to hunt and kill. The storm had driven them out of their deep caves, and they were hungry. Colony alarms blared as the first pack reached the outer fence. The electric barrier that usually kept animals away was failing in the storm. Sparks flew as the void stalkers tore through the metal posts. Jake ran through the colony toward Vera's enclosure. People were everywhere, grabbing emergency supplies and heading for the evacuation shuttles. Children cried as their parents carried them to safety. Jake, Dr. Amy Clark grabbed his arm. The evacuation shuttle is leaving in 10 minutes. You need to get on it. What about Vera and the babies? Jake shouted over the storm noise. Amy's face looked sad. Director Cross says there's no room for them on the shuttles. They're too big. Jake felt his heart sink. After everything that had happened, the colony was going to abandon Vera's family to the monsters. I'm not leaving them. Jake, you'll die if you stay here, Amy said. The void stalkers will kill everything they find. Jake pulled away from her. Then I'll die protecting them. They trusted me, and I won't let them down. Jake reached the enclosure, just as Commander Pete Williams was locking the main gate. Morrison, what are you doing here? Everyone needs to evacuate now. I'm staying with them, Jake said, pointing to Vera and her babies inside the enclosure. Pete looked at Jake like he was crazy. You can't save them. Look how big they are. The shuttles can't carry them. Through the clear walls of the enclosure, Jake could see Vera, Luna, and Saul huddled together. Their lights flashed in frightened patterns. They knew danger was coming, but they did not understand why the humans were leaving them behind. Open the gate, Jake said. If we can't take them with us, at least let them try to escape on their own. Pete shook his head. If I open that gate and they get out, they might hurt people. They won't hurt anyone, Jake said. You know that. A terrible howl echoed through the colony. The first void stalkers had broken through the inner defenses. Pete looked toward the sound, then back at Jake. I'm sorry, Pete said, and ran toward the evacuation shuttles. Jake climbed over the fence into the enclosure. Luna and Sol immediately ran to him, wrapping their arms around him. Their lights pulsed with fear, but also with joy that Jake had come to them. Vera approached slowly. She was much bigger than her babies now, standing 8 feet tall even though she was not fully grown. Her lights flashed in complex patterns that Jake was beginning to understand meant, why are the humans leaving? I don't know how to explain it, Jake said, touching Vera's arm. But I'm not leaving you. We'll face whatever comes together. The sound of breaking glass came from nearby. A pack of void stalkers had smashed into one of the empty buildings. Jake could hear their claws scraping on metal as they searched for prey. Jake led Vera's family to the strongest part of their enclosure, but he knew the walls would not stop the void stalkers for long. These predators could tear through metal with their claws. Listen to me, Jake said to Luna and Sul. If something happens to me, you need to take care of each other and your mother. Can you understand that? Both babies pressed closer to Jake. Their lights flashed in patterns that Jake had learned meant no, they would not leave him. The lights in the enclosure suddenly went out. The main power generator had failed. Jake turned on his flashlight, but its small beam seemed tiny in the darkness. Then Jake heard a sound that made his blood freeze. Claws were scratching against the outer wall of the enclosure. The void stalkers had found them. The scratching got louder. Jake could hear the creatures sniffing and growling as they tried to find a way in. Vera moved protectively in front of Jake and her babies. Her lights dimmed so they would not attract attention. Suddenly, part of the wall exploded inward. 3 void stalkers burst through the opening. They were even more terrifying up close. Bigger than wolves, with glowing red eyes and saliva dripping from their fangs. The lead stalker looked around the enclosure and focused on Jake. It could smell that he was different from the alien creatures. To the void stalker, Jake would be easier prey. The creature leaped toward Jake with its claws extended. Jake raised his arms to protect himself, knowing it was hopeless. But the void stalker never reached him. Luna and Sul moved faster than Jake had ever seen them move. They intercepted the predator in mid-air, knocking it sideways into the wall. The 2 babies were much smaller than the void stalker, but they fought with incredible coordination. Luna grabbed the creature's front legs while Sul attacked its back. Their shell pieces had become harder and sharper as they grew, and now those shells were weapons. The other 2 void stalkers tried to help their packmate, but Vera joined the fight. Her full size and strength became clear as she grabbed one stalker in her powerful arms and threw it across the enclosure. The creature hit the wall with a sickening crack and did not get up. Jake watched in amazement as Vera's family fought to protect him. They moved like they had practiced together for years. Luna and Sul would distract a stalker while Vera attacked from behind. When one of the babies got in trouble, the other 2 would immediately help. But Jake could see that more void stalkers were coming. The noise of the fight had attracted other packs. Soon they would be surrounded. "We have to get out of here," Jake shouted. He grabbed his emergency kit and headed for the hole the stalkers had made in the wall. Vera's family followed him without question. Even in the middle of battle, Luna and Sul stayed close to Jake's side. They trusted him to lead them to safety. Jake led them through the deserted colony streets. Buildings were damaged from the storm, and debris was everywhere. The howls of void stalkers echoed from all directions. They reached the colony's power station, a heavy concrete building that might offer protection. Jake used his access card to open the door, and they all rushed inside. The power station was dark except for a few emergency lights. Huge machines hummed quietly as they provided backup power for essential systems. Jake thought they might be safe here until the storm passed, but Jake was wrong. As they moved deeper into the building, 3 more void stalkers appeared from the shadows. These were bigger than the others, pack leaders with scars from many hunts. Jake found himself trapped between the machines with nowhere to run. The stalkers spread out to surround him. Their red eyes glowed with hunger, and their claws clicked on the concrete floor. Jake closed his eyes and waited for the end. He was proud that he had not abandoned Vera's family, even if he could not save them. But once again, Luna and Sul would not let anything hurt the human who had saved their lives. They appeared between Jake and the stalkers like guardian angels, their lights blazing with determination. This time, they did not wait for the stalkers to attack first. Luna and Sul struck together, moving with perfect coordination. They had learned from the earlier fight and were ready for these bigger opponents. Behind them, Vera's powerful voice roared through the power station. She was calling to her children, telling them she was coming to help. The sound was so loud that dust fell from the ceiling. When Vera arrived, the battle was already decided. Luna and Sul had fought with such fierce loyalty that the stalkers were retreating. Vera's presence finished what her babies had started. Jake stood in the emergency lights, surrounded by the alien family that had risked everything to protect him. He realized that Luna and Sul's recognition of him as their master was not just imprinting or training. It was love, the same love that made human families fight for each other. "Thank you," Jake whispered, and all 3 aliens flashed their lights in the pattern that meant family. The storm ended at dawn. Jake and Vera's family emerged from the power station to find the colony in ruins. Buildings were damaged, debris was scattered everywhere, and the outer fences were completely destroyed. But the most important thing was that the void stalkers were gone. The evacuation shuttles returned as the sun came up. Jake watched as people stepped out and saw the destruction. Many looked shocked that anyone had survived the night in the colony. Director Helen Cross was the first person to reach Jake. She stared at him like she was seeing a ghost. "Morrison, how are you still alive?" Jake pointed to Vera, Luna, and Sul, who stood protectively around him. "They saved me, multiple times. Commander Pete Williams joined them, looking embarrassed. "Jake, I'm sorry we had to leave you behind." "The shuttles really couldn't carry them." "I understand," Jake said. "But you need to understand something, too. These creatures risked their lives to protect a human. They fought off packs of void stalkers to keep me safe. They're not monsters, they're heroes." Dr. Amy Clark came running across the damaged colony square. "Jake, we saw the stalker bodies near the power station. How many did you fight?" "We fought at least 8, Jake said. Luna and Sul took on creatures twice their size without hesitation, and Vera fought like a warrior to protect all of us." Word spread quickly through the colony. The aliens that many people had feared had become the protectors of the one human who stayed behind. Parents who had been afraid to let their children near the enclosure now wanted to thank the alien family personally. Little Katie, the girl who had fallen and hurt her knee, brought Luna a flower she had picked. Luna accepted it gently and made soft, happy sounds. Her lights flashed in the pattern that meant friend. Director Cross called an emergency meeting of all colonists. Jake stood before the crowd with Vera, Luna, and Sul beside him. "These beings have proven themselves to be intelligent, peaceful, and protective," Director Cross announced. "They are no longer prisoners in our colony. They are our first alien citizens," the crowd cheered. Jake felt tears in his eyes as he watched the colonists accept his alien family. Luna and Sul seemed to understand what was happening. Their lights flashed with joy and they made happy purring sounds. But Jake knew the real changes were just beginning. In the weeks that followed, Luna and Sul continued to grow and learn. They became Jake's assistants in his scientific work, helping him study other alien creatures on the planet. The babies, though they were not really babies anymore, learned to use human tools with incredible skill. Luna became expert at operating scanning equipment, while Sul learned to organize and catalog specimens. They worked beside Jake every day, their lights flashing with concentration as they focused on their tasks. Vera also found her place in the colony. Her great strength made her valuable for construction work, and her intelligence helped solve problems that had puzzled human engineers for months. She learned to operate heavy machinery and became the leader of the colony's building projects. But the most remarkable thing was how Luna and Sul continued to see Jake as their master and father. Even as they grew larger and stronger, they still followed him everywhere. When Jake went to sleep, they would curl up outside his door like guardian dogs. When he worked late, they would bring him food and water. Other colonists began to notice that Luna and Sul were different from their mother in some ways. They had grown up around humans, and they acted more human than Vera did. They understood human emotions better. They could use human technology more easily, and they even began to prefer some human foods over their natural diet. Dr. Amy Clark studied this phenomenon carefully. "Jake, I think Luna and Sul are developing a hybrid culture. They're part luminary and part human. It's like they're becoming a bridge between our species." Jake watched Luna and Sul playing with human children in the colony square. The alien siblings had learned human games and even invented new games that mixed human and luminary elements. The children loved them, and Luna and Sul were incredibly gentle and patient with their small human friends. "They're becoming something new," Jake agreed. "Not fully alien and not fully human, but something wonderful." 6 months after the storm, Jake received a message that changed everything. A ship from Earth was coming to study the first successful human-alien contact in history. Leading the mission was Dr. Amy Clark's mentor, a famous xenobiologist named Professor Kate Johnson. When Professor Johnson arrived, she was amazed by what she found. Jake gave her a complete tour of the colony, showing her how Luna and Sul worked alongside humans, how Vera had become a valued member of the community, and how the Luminari family had integrated into human society. "This is unprecedented," Professor Johnson told Jake. "You've achieved what many people thought was impossible, true cooperation between humans and an intelligent alien species." Jake smiled as he watched Luna, teaching a group of human children how to make light patterns with flashlights. It all started with one simple choice: to help instead of harm. Professor Johnson documented everything about the Luminary family. She recorded their language, studied their technology, and interviewed everyone in the colony about their experiences with the aliens. But the most important part of her report was about the bond between Jake and Luna and Sul. "The subjects demonstrate unprecedented loyalty and affection toward their human guardian," she wrote. This appears to be based not on fear or training, but on genuine emotional attachment and gratitude. The news of Jake's success spread throughout human space. Other colonies began reporting their own attempts at peaceful contact with alien species. Some were successful, others were not, but Jake's example gave people hope that humans did not have to be alone in the universe. Jake became famous as the man who proved that monsters could become family, but he did not care about fame. What mattered to him was watching Luna and Sul continue to grow and learn, seeing Vera become a respected leader in the colony, and knowing that his choice to show compassion had changed the future for both humans and aliens. Years later, when Luna and Sul had children of their own, those children also recognized Jake as family. They followed him around just like their parents had, their lights flashing with love and trust. Jake realized that he had not just saved 3 alien lives in a cave. He had started a new kind of family that crossed species boundaries. He had proven that love and kindness could overcome fear and prejudice. The luminary children learned from their parents that Jake was special, not because he was their master, but because he was the human who chose to help when he could have chosen to harm. They learned that some souls shine brighter than others, and those bright souls should be treasured and protected. On quiet evenings, Jake would sit with the whole luminary family and watch the sunset over their peaceful colony. Luna and Sul, now adults with families of their own, would still come to sit beside him like they had as babies. Their lights would flash in gentle patterns that meant home and family and love. Jake had learned that the greatest adventures did not come from conquering alien worlds or defeating alien monsters. They came from opening your heart to creatures that seemed different and discovering that, deep down, all intelligent beings wanted the same things: safety for their families, respect from their neighbors, and love from those they cared about. The cave where it all began became a monument to the power of compassion. Visitors from across the galaxy would come to see where one human's choice to help a pregnant alien changed the course of interstellar relations forever. And in that monument, children of many species would learn the most important lesson of all, that kindness is the universal language that all intelligent beings can understand.